Think the Amazon is just dense forest and water? What if I told you the trees there can walk through the jungle and the rivers boil their victims alive? Today, we're unveiling places where the laws of physics cease to apply. You'll witness fish clad in bulletproof armor and water currents that flow for years without mingling. And at the very end, we'll show you a chilling ancient ritual where a tiny insect makes grown men scream in agony for days. Ready? Let's dive in. Our countdown commences with 13th place, a phenomenon that looks like a glaring error in a graphics editor, miraculously transposed into our reality. Behold the meeting of waters, a singular natural wonder nestled in the heart of the Brazilian Amazon, not far from the city of Manaus. Picture this, a colossal, heavy stream, as dark as strong coffee without cream, colliding at full speed with a mighty, murky yellow river, the color of diluted clay or coffee with milk. Conventional physics and logic dictate that two liquids in the same glass should instantly blend into a uniform grayish-brown hue. But the Amazon scoffs at our classroom knowledge and expectations. For a stretch of 6 kilometers, these two immense flows journey side by side in a single channel, refusing to mix, creating a distinct boundary visible even from Earth's orbit. This is the confluence of two magnificent rivers, the Rio Negro and the Solimões. The secret behind this multi-kilometer marvel lies in simple yet uncompromising physics. The black water of the Rio Negro, originating from Colombia's northern forests, contains virtually no minerals, but is rich in decaying organic matter, making it acidic and quite warm, with a temperature around 28 degrees Celsius. In contrast, the yellow water of the Solimões, born in the Peruvian Andes, is cooler, at just about 22 degrees, and significantly denser and heavier due to millions of tons of sand, clay, and silt it carries from the mountains. Furthermore, these two giants move at vastly different speeds. The yellow Solimões rushes forward powerfully at 6 kilometers per hour, sweeping everything in its path. The black Rio Negro, however, meanders lazily, reaching a mere 2 kilometers per hour. Due to the immense disparities in density, temperature, and flow rate, these waters literally repel each other, creating a surreal spectacle where you can dip one hand into the cold yellow water and the other into the warm black water, all while in the same boat. Occupying 12th place is a location that shatters all stereotypes about law enforcement and resembles a set from a bizarre dream. In the vast estuary where the Amazon meets the Atlantic lies Marajo Island, the world's largest river island. This isn't merely a patch of land, it's a colossal territory, comparable in size to Switzerland or the Netherlands, bordered by fresh river water on one side and the salty ocean on the other. The landscape here is a nightmare for any machinery. Impenetrable swamps, viscous mud, flooded meadows, and mangrove thickets where even the most rugged military all-terrain vehicle or crawler would get hopelessly stuck. Yet, people inhabit the island, and its territory requires patrolling. The local police have devised a brilliant and unconventional solution that would astound any European tourist. At Marajo's police stations, you won't find typical patrol cars with flashing lights or motorcycles. Instead, officers embark on their duties astride enormous Asian water buffaloes. These beasts, weighing 600 or even 800 kilograms, with powerful curved horns and thick hides impervious to local insects, are perfectly adapted to the hellish conditions of the Amazon Delta. They effortlessly navigate deep bogs where no vehicle can venture, swim vast distances with ease, and, despite their intimidating appearance, possess a surprisingly calm and docile temperament. For the local officer, the buffalo serves as transport, a tank, and a loyal partner when apprehending criminals. The buffalo population on the island exceeds 450,000 head, significantly outnumbering the permanent human residents of Marajo. The sight of an officer in body armor, dark sunglasses, and with a sidearm holstered, guiding a horned behemoth slowly wading waist-deep through water, looks like a scene from a post-apocalyptic action film. But for the inhabitants of the Amazon, it's simply an effective necessity for survival. Holding the 11th spot are creatures that might seem like charming characters from children's fairy tales, but are in reality surrounded by dark, chilling superstitions. In the murky, opaque waters of the Amazon basin dwell unique animals, the Amazonian river dolphins, or botos. They are the largest freshwater dolphins on planet Earth. Adult males can reach 2.5 meters in length and weigh up to 200 kilograms, true underwater heavyweights. But their most captivating feature, drawing global attention, is their color. They are genuinely pink, with shades varying from a delicate peach and grayish tones to a vibrant flamingo or even fuchsia. Scientists are still fiercely debating the origin of this coloration. Some theorize it's due to the close proximity of capillaries to the skin's surface for thermoregulation. Others attribute it to numerous scars from altercations with their own kind, which become pigmented over time. But don't let their adorable, cartoonish appearance and perpetual smiles deceive you. Local populations hold these creatures in mystical, primal awe and try to avoid direct eye contact, especially at dusk. According to ancient legends of indigenous tribes, the pink dolphin is an encantado, a shapeshifter and enchanted being. Lore has it that on moonlit nights, it transforms into a handsome man in a dazzling white suit and hat. This stranger emerges onto the shore, attends village festivals, dances with virtuosity, seduces the most beautiful maidens, and lures them away to his underwater city, from which there is no return to the world of the living. From a purely biological standpoint, the Inia is also remarkable and even somewhat unsettling. Unlike their marine counterparts, their neck vertebrae are not fused into a single block. This allows the dolphin to rotate its head 90 degrees in any direction, maneuvering with eerie grace between submerged tree trunks in search of fish, relying not on sight, which is useless in murky water, but on a perfect echolocation system. 10th on our list is an engineering paradox that baffles anyone accustomed to convenient urban logistics. If you examine a map of any other major waterway in the world, be it the Nile, the Danube, the Mississippi, or the Volga, you'll find dozens, if not hundreds, of road and rail bridges connecting the banks into a unified transportation network. But the Amazon is a colossal exception that defies modern comprehension. Across the entire immense expanse of the river's main channel, which, mind you, spans over 6,400 kilometers from its origins in the Andes to the Atlantic, there is not a single bridge, not one steel or concrete structure. This seems absurd, considering that millions of people live on the banks of this aquatic giant, and large metropolises like Manaus or Iquitos stand there. However, crossing to the other side is only possible through age-old methods, by boat or a slow ferry. The reason for this infrastructural vacuum isn't a lack of technology or budgetary resources in South American countries, but rather the monstrous, unpredictable nature of the river itself. The Amazon is not just a flow of water, it's a living, breathing organism on a planetary scale. During the dry season, the channel's width in some places might be a manageable 4 or 5 kilometers for engineers. But when the seasonal tropical downpours begin in the river basin, it transforms into an unmanageable monster. The water level rises rapidly by 10 and sometimes even 15 meters, inundating everything around. The width of the floodplain during such periods reaches an astonishing 50 kilometers, turning the river into a true inland sea. Moreover, the geology of these regions is a builder's nightmare. The banks here are not stationary or firm. They consist of soft, swampy alluvial soil that constantly erodes, collapses, and shifts its contours. The Amazon's riverbed constantly migrates, and the spot where you might place a bridge support today could, a year later, be the middle of a deep channel, or, conversely, dry land kilometers from the water. The river carries what are known as floating islands, colossal conglomerates of intertwined roots, uprooted trees, and soil spanning several hectares. Such natural battering rams, propelled by the current, are capable of sweeping away even the most massive concrete support, like a matchstick. Building a bridge across the Amazon is akin to attempting to erect a skyscraper on quicksand that also constantly shifts and attacks you with floating debris. Therefore, Local residents have long accepted that the river here is not an obstacle to be overcome, but the only road to be obeyed. Ninth place is occupied by a story of how one of the world's greatest industrial empires was shattered by the Green Wall of the jungle. In the 1920s, Henry Ford, the automotive king and one of the wealthiest men on the planet, decided his genius could conquer even the wild nature of the Amazon. He needed cheap rubber for tire production and adamantly refused to depend on British suppliers, who held a monopoly on rubber from Asia. Thus was born one of the most ambitious, costly, and failed projects in business history, the city of Fordlandia. Ford purchased a vast tract of land in the Brazilian wilderness, 10,000 square kilometers, and began constructing a typical American turnkey city, intending to transplant a piece of Michigan into the heart of the tropics. Imagine a surreal scene. Amidst an impenetrable, humid thicket where monkeys shriek and jaguars roam, rows of neat white cottages with perfect lawns suddenly appear. Modern hospitals, schools, a fire station, a cinema, and even a professional golf course are built. Factories are equipped with the latest technology of the time. However, Ford attempted to export not only architecture, but also a way of life. Local workers were forced to adhere to a strict American schedule, wear badges, attend English dance lessons, and eat hamburgers and oatmeal in the cafeterias, while alcohol and traditional food were forbidden. This led to a social explosion. The workers, exhausted by the unfamiliar regime and diet, rebelled in what was dubbed the Pancake Rebellion, ransacking the cafeteria and forcing the managers to flee into the jungle. But nature itself dealt the fatal blow. American engineers, clueless about tropical botany, planted Hevea rubber trees too close together. In the wild, trees grow spaced apart, which protects them from epidemics. Here, the density created a perfect incubator for pests. The leaves were afflicted by a fungus, and the trunks began to be devoured by insects. The plantations perished without yielding the expected harvest. Ultimately, the project, into which millions of dollars, an astronomical sum for that time, were invested, failed spectacularly. In 1945, Henry Ford's grandson sold the land to the Brazilian government for next to nothing. Today, Fordlandia is an atmospheric and eerie ghost town, where the rusted skeletons of water towers and empty factory workshops with shattered windows are slowly being consumed by the encroaching forest, serving as a monument to human hubris and a reminder that money cannot always conquer biology. Eighth position is held by a natural phenomenon that transforms tranquil waters into a zone of deadly risk. Twice a year, during the new and full moons, when the moon's gravitational pull is at its maximum, the mouth of the Amazon becomes an arena for a battle between two elemental titans. The oceanic tide gains such colossal power that it overcomes the current of the world's most voluminous river and, with a roar, drives water upstream into the continent. This phenomenon was named the Pororoca by the Tupi people, meaning great destructive noise. And this is no exaggeration. A sinister, low-frequency rumble of approaching water can be heard 30 minutes before the wave itself appears on the horizon, inducing panic among all living things on the banks. This is not merely a wave, it's a liquid bulldozer. A wall of murky brown water up to 4 meters high surges upstream at a speed of 25 kilometers per hour, sweeping everything in its path. It effortlessly uproots centuries-old trees standing at the water's edge, destroys fishing huts, and capsizes small boats that haven't found refuge in quiet coves. The wave can travel up to 800 kilometers inland, altering the landscape beyond recognition. But where local residents see disaster and the wrath of the gods, thrill-seekers from around the world see life's ultimate challenge. Extreme surfers flock to the murky waters of the Amazon to catch this legendary, endless wave. Surfing the Pororoca is one of the planet's most dangerous sports, bordering on suicidal. Unlike in the ocean, here you cannot see the bottom or what the water carries. And it carries tons of debris, sharp snags, entire tree trunks capable of breaking bones upon impact. Furthermore, the wave washes all aquatic life from the banks, so crocodiles, anacondas, and schools of piranhas, disoriented and aggressive, might be swept along with the surfer in this turbulent current. Despite the mortal risk, the reward is immense. While a ride on an ocean wave lasts seconds, the record for continuous riding on the Pororoca exceeds 30 minutes. That's half an hour of fighting for survival on the crest of a dirty, roaring monster that tolerates no mistakes. Seventh on our list is a botanical phenomenon that forces us to rewrite biology textbooks and question the immutability of nature's laws. We are taught from childhood a simple axiom: animals move, run, fly, and crawl, while plants are static. They are eternally bound by roots to the spot where a seed once fell and sprouted, forced to accept their fate, whether it be drought or shade. But in the humid, sweltering, and perpetually dim jungles of the Amazon, there exists a tree that has decided to defy this rule and evolve into something entirely different. The Socratia exoryza palm, respectfully called Coapona by local indigenous tribes, possesses a unique anatomy unparalleled in the plant kingdom. If you encounter this tree in the forest, the first thing that strikes you is its strange, almost alien appearance. The trunk of this palm doesn't go directly into the ground like ordinary trees. It begins at human eye level, or sometimes higher, supported by a cluster of thick, woody roots covered in thorns. This structure more closely resembles the legs of a giant spider, a camera tripod, or the frame of a hut, lifting the main body of the tree above the swampy soil. And these legs are not just, or even primarily, for stability in the soft ground, but for actual physical migration. In the dense tropical forest, under the thick canopy of branches, an eternal, silent, and brutal war rages for the primary resource of life: sunlight. Only 2% of solar rays reach the ground here, and the competition for them is deadly. If an ordinary tree finds itself in the shade of larger, older neighbors that block its access to photosynthesis, it slowly withers. But the walking palm chooses a different strategy. It starts packing its bags. Sensing a deficiency in light, the tree begins to grow new, fresh, and long roots in the direction where illumination is better. For example, towards a clearing created by the fall of another giant. Gradually, these extensions reach the soil, embed themselves, and firmly anchor, taking on the trunk's weight. Simultaneously, the reverse process occurs. The old roots, left in the shade and no longer needed, slowly wither. They dry out, rot, and eventually detach from the ground, dangling in the air like amputated limbs. Thus, the tree shifts its center of gravity, leans, and slowly but surely moves its entire massive body to a more favorable zone. It's like a slow-motion video of walking, shifting weight onto one leg, pulling up the other. The speed of this locomotion can reach 20 meters per year. For humans, this is infinitesimally small. We'd cover that distance in half a minute, but by the standards of the plant world, where the count is in millimeters, this is a true Olympic sprint, comparable to the speed of a cheetah in the savannah. It can step over enormous fallen trunks, navigate around rocks, and even move away from areas of soil poor in nutrients. Heated debates continue to rage in the scientific community. The hypothesis of walking was first proposed by anthropologist John Bodley in 1980. And although some skeptics argue that the roots merely provide stability, local guides and many biologists insist otherwise. They show tourists palms that have clearly shifted from their sprouting location, leaving behind a trail of decayed roots. For the indigenous peoples of the Amazon, this palm is not just a natural wonder, but an important resource. The wood of its legs is so hard and durable that it's used for building huts and crafting spears, and the thorny roots serve as natural graters for cassava. But for an outsider, encountering a coapona evokes a slight apprehension. Imagine setting up a tent in the forest, falling asleep under a palm, and returning a year later to the same spot, only to find it gone, because it simply walked away in search of sunlight. It's a living embodiment of the Ents from The Lord of the Rings, proving that in the Amazon, even plants possess the will to move and survive at any cost. Sixth place is occupied by a story that has become perhaps the greatest adventure mystery of the 20th century. We are talking about the fate of Colonel Percy Fawcett, a man of steel, the last great explorer of that era. Fawcett was not a cabinet scholar or a naive dreamer. He was an experienced military topographer, a decorated officer, a man with exceptional physical health, and an inexplicable immunity to tropical fevers. He spent years in the jungles of South America and knew this green hell better than any European. But the colonel harbored an obsession. In the archives of the National Library of Rio de Janeiro, he discovered a document known as Manuscript 512. This report, by Portuguese Bandeirantes, dated 1753, described an abandoned but majestic city deep in the jungle, with colossal stone arches, statues, wide streets, and hieroglyphs resembling ancient Greek. Fawcett was convinced that the Amazon hid the remnants of a highly advanced, possibly Atlantean civilization, which he, for secrecy reasons, named City Z. At that time, the scientific community considered the jungle a false paradise, incapable of sustaining large populations. But Fawcett believed old maps more than skeptics. In 1925, having secured funding and the support of the Royal Geographical Society, he embarked on his final expedition. Fawcett's strategy was radical. No large entourages that would succumb to disease and provoke attacks from indigenous tribes. Only a small, mobile group. He took only 2 companions, his elder son Jack, eager for glory, and his school friend Raleigh Rymel. They planned to cross the state of Mato Grosso into the most remote and unexplored region of the Amazon basin. On May 29, 1925, the group reached a point Fawcett called Dead Horse Camp. From there, the colonel sent his last letter to his wife, Nina, via local guides, containing the famous phrase, "You have nothing to fear from failure." After that, the 3 Englishmen crossed the border of the known world, stepped into the green wall of the forest, and simply vanished into eternity. They were never seen alive again. No bodies, no signs of struggle, not a button, not a tin cup. The jungle consumed them whole, leaving not even a hint of a clue. The disappearance of the world's most famous explorer caused a genuine frenzy. In the decades that followed, dozens of rescue expeditions were launched into the jungle, from professional searchers to lone adventurers. The outcome was tragic. In attempts to find Fawcett, more than 100 people perished or went missing due to starvation, tropical diseases, jaguars, and the arrows of hostile indigenous tribes. This is 30 times more than the size of the lost group itself. This story has become shrouded in mystical theories. Some speculated that Fawcett had found his intended city and chose to remain there, becoming a chieftain among a native population and establishing a utopian commune, shielded from the looming Second World War. Others held a different belief, that he was captured by the Kolopala tribe, who, it was rumoured, confessed years later to killing strangers for violating their customs of hospitality. The most poignant irony of this tale is that Fawcett might have been entirely correct. Contemporary investigations employing satellite imagery and LiDAR laser scanning have uncovered remnants of vast earthworks, geometrically precise roadways, and settlements capable of housing tens of thousands, precisely in the region he was headed. An ancient civilization did indeed exist. It simply constructed not from stone, but from wood and earth, allowing the jungle to swiftly reclaim its traces. The colonel sacrificed his life for a truth that may have been mere dozens of kilometers beyond his reach. The top 5 list is led by a creature that weaponized the very laws of physics into a sophisticated and undetectable instrument of mass destruction. In the murky, stagnant backwaters and slow tributaries of the Amazon floats a living bioelectric generator, an encounter with which can prove fatal for any who dare to cool themselves in the water. The electric eel is, strictly speaking, a zoological deception. It is not an eel at all, but a species of ray-finned fish, a far closer relative to the catfish. Yet this detail does nothing to diminish its fearsome nature. The anatomy of this being is unique and honed for a single purpose: electrical generation. Approximately 80% of its serpentine body, reaching up to 2.5 meters in length, is not comprised of muscle, bone, or fat, but of 3 pairs of specialized organs, each containing thousands of electrocyte cells. These are, in essence, living batteries, connected in series to form a massive electrical circuit, with the positive pole situated near the head and the negative at the tail. A healthy adult specimen can generate an electrical discharge of up to 860 volts. To grasp the scale of this threat, consider that the electrical outlet in your home, a shock from which is notoriously memorable, delivers only 220 volts. The eel's shock, in terms of amperage, exceeds 1 amp. Such a discharge is sufficient to instantly incapacitate a horse crossing a river, to topple an adult man, and to induce immediate cardiac fibrillation, which, in water, invariably leads to loss of consciousness and drowning. For a considerable time, it was believed these creatures were solitary hunters, employing their gift solely for self-defense and stunning individual prey. However, biologists recently made a discovery that is profoundly unsettling. In certain Amazonian lakes, these fish have learned to hunt in organized packs, akin to wolves or orcas. They herd schools of small fish into shallows, encircle them with a dense ring, and upon a signal, deliver synchronized high-voltage shocks, combining their power. The water at this moment virtually boils with energy, and the stunned prey surfaces by the dozens, easily collected without resistance. This evolutionary superweapon grants them absolute dominance in the murky depths, where sight is rendered useless. They utilize weak discharges as a highly precise radar for navigation in complete darkness, and potent volleys as heavy artillery. Moreover, the renowned naturalist Alexander von Humboldt described in the 19th century how eels would leap from the water to shock horses positioned above the waterline. This was long dismissed as folklore, but recent experiments have confirmed it. The eel is indeed capable of attacking terrestrial adversaries by pressing its chin against them, ensuring the discharge passes through the victim's entire body, inflicting maximum agony. Holding the 4th position is a creature that seems to have forgotten to go extinct along with the dinosaurs, continuing to patrol murky waters as a living fossil. While the electric eel is a hidden threat, the arapaima, or as local indigenous people call it, pirarucu, embodies the sheer power and armored fury of the Amazon. It is one of the largest freshwater fish on our planet, a true river leviathan that has remained virtually unchanged for the past 23 million years. An encounter with this behemoth in the water can induce a panic attack even in a seasoned diver. Imagine a torpedo-shaped body, 3 meters in length and weighing over 200 kilograms, covered in scales whose strength can rival modern body armor. The anatomy of the arapaima is a unique engineering marvel of nature, crafted for survival in the harshest conditions. Its scales are so hard and rough that local inhabitants use them as sandpaper to polish wood, and its teeth, astonishingly, grow even on its tongue, transforming its mouth into a bony grater capable of grinding bone and shell. But the true enigma of this monster lies in its paradoxical respiration. The Amazon is a warm river, and its stagnant backwaters suffer from a catastrophic lack of dissolved oxygen. Ordinary fish would simply suffocate in such an environment, but the pirarucu found a solution. It developed a rudimentary lung. It possesses a swim bladder, laced with a dense network of blood vessels that functions as pulmonary tissue. This grants it an extraordinary advantage, but simultaneously becomes its Achilles heel. Every 15 to 20 minutes, this armored titan must ascend to the surface to take a loud, whistling gulp of atmospheric air. The sound of this inhalation, reminiscent of Darth Vader's cough, carries for hundreds of meters along the river, revealing the fish's location. It is at this precise moment that it becomes vulnerable to local fishermen, who have hunted it with harpoons for centuries. However, for all other river inhabitants, the arapaima is an impervious tank. Its armor is so robust that even a school of hungry piranhas cannot penetrate its skin, breaking their razor-sharp teeth on its scales. This allows the pirarucu to swim unmolested through predator-infested waters, fearing no one but humans. During the dry season, when the water recedes and many fish perish in drying puddles, the arapaima simply burrows into the mud and breathes air, enduring the harsh times until the return of the high waters to resume its hunt, confirming its status as king of the Amazon. Our bronze, third-place ranking goes to a phenomenon that in the 21st century seems like pure fantasy. In the most inaccessible depths of the Amazon rainforest, in the Javari Valley region bordering Brazil and Peru, live people for whom we are essentially otherworldly visitors, gods or demons. These are the so-called uncontacted tribes, ethnic groups who have never seen a smartphone, know nothing of the wheel, money, or the internet, and live by traditions that have remained virtually unchanged since the Stone Age. Anthropologists estimate that up to 100 such isolated groups may be hidden within the Brazilian Amazon, and we learn of the existence of some only through indirect evidence: abandoned huts, tracks in the sand, or smoke from campfires. The most terrifying and tragic aspect of their existence is their reaction to the outside world. Any attempt at contact with our civilization is perceived by them as an act of aggression and the beginning of the apocalypse. When research aircraft or police helicopters, searching for drug traffickers, fly over their villages, the men of the tribe emerge onto the clearings. Their bodies are painted a vibrant red with paint derived from annatto seeds, the color of war and blood. In their fury, they begin to assail the metal birds with long bows, attempting to defend their families from an unknown, thundering threat from the sky. And there is a grim logic to this aggression. The historical memory of these peoples holds the horrors of the rubber boom of the last century, when white men came to the forest solely to kill, rape, and enslave. For them, any outsider is a harbinger of misfortune. But the greatest threat we bring is unseen. These people completely lack immunity to our viruses and bacteria. Common colds, measles, or chickenpox, which for us are a mere nuisance, for them represent biological weapons of mass destruction, a death sentence capable of decimating an entire tribe, from elders to infants, in a matter of weeks. History records instances where up to 90% of a community perished after accidental contact with loggers. This is precisely why governments establish buffer zones around their territories and prohibit all contact. This is not a zoo, it is a quarantine. Conversely, where we are carriers of plague, they are the last guardians of human innocence, living in constant fear of a sky that might one day fall upon them. Second place, the silver of our top, goes to a natural anomaly whose existence scientists refuse to believe until the very last moment. Imagine a river in the heart of the Peruvian jungle into which it is physically impossible to enter without being literally boiled alive. Legends of a boiling river circulated among local shamans for centuries, but academic science considered them a beautiful myth. Geologists were adamant. To heat such a colossal volume of flowing water to boiling requires a powerful heat source, such as an active volcano nearby. But there are no volcanoes in this part of the Amazon basin, and never have been. The closest is 700 kilometers away. Yet the river exists, and it is lethally real. Its ancient name is Chanay Timpishka, which in the language of local tribes means heated by the sun's warmth. The length of this hot current is over 6 kilometers. Its width reaches 25 meters, and its depth is up to 6 meters. These are not small streams, but a fully formed river. The water temperature here fluctuates from 45 to nearly 100 degrees Celsius. In the hottest eddies, the water boils, spewing thick clouds of white steam into the air, creating an infernal atmosphere. Local residents use the water for brewing tea, washing clothes, and cooking food simply by immersing ingredients in the flow. But for the animal world, it is a death trap. Any creature that has the misfortune of slipping on a wet stone and falling into the water is doomed to an agonizing demise. The cause of this phenomenon turned out to be unique. It is not magma, but geothermal fissures extending deep into the Earth's crust. Rainwater seeps into the depths, where it is heated to extreme temperatures and, under immense pressure, erupts back to the surface through cracks, like blood from the Earth's arteries. This is the only river of its kind and scale on the entire planet, a natural cauldron that reminds us of the colossal energy slumbering beneath our feet. And finally, the absolute leader. First place, a creature that rightfully bears the title of the jungle's chief nightmare, despite its size not exceeding 3 centimeters. Forget jaguars, caimans, and venomous snakes. They can be deterred or avoided, but an encounter with the bullet ant will send even the toughest man rolling on the ground, driven mad by agony. It received its descriptive name not for mere rhetoric. On Justin Schmidt's authoritative pain index, the sting of this insect sits at the very pinnacle, with a maximum rating of 4+. Those few brave souls who have had the misfortune of experiencing it describe the sensation as being shot by a real revolver, or stepping barefoot on red-hot coals studded with rusty nails. The venom of this ant, Panerotoxin, acts on the nervous system, causing not just localized pain, but waves of paralyzing convulsions that recur again and again. And this lasts not for an hour or two, but for precisely 24 hours. This is why locals call it the 24-hour ant. During this time, the victim is racked by fever. Their limbs are unresponsive and their heartbeat becomes erratic. But the most shocking aspect is how humans have learned to utilize these monsters. The indigenous Saterema-Way tribe has a brutal initiation ritual that every boy must undergo to be considered a man. Shamans go into the forest, collect hundreds of these ants, and sedate them by immersing them in an infusion of special herbs. While the insects are asleep, they are woven into special gloves, stingers facing inward. When the ants awaken, they are disoriented and enraged. The adolescent must then wear these gloves on both hands and endure the stings of hundreds of furious insects for a grueling 10 minutes. Crying is forbidden. It is considered a sign of weakness. The hands turn black from the venom and swell to an unrecognizable size. The pain clouds consciousness, inducing hallucinations. After the gloves are removed, uncontrollable tremors can last for a full day. And to prove their fortitude and become a warrior, this ritual must be performed not once, but a total of 20 times over several months. This is perhaps the harshest and most painful trial that the unforgiving nature of the Amazon can offer a human. Would you risk putting on a glove of bullet ants to test your character? Or would you prefer to steer clear of these jungles? Write your answers in the comments, give a like if you found it interesting, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next journey through the most dangerous corners of our planet. See you soon.